Princeton, New Jersey, 1950. Albert Einstein sits alone in his office at the Institute for Advanced Study, 3rd floor. Corner room, large windows facing the woods, blackboard covering one entire wall, chalk dust everywhere, papers stacked on his desk, some organized, most not. It's late afternoon. Golden light filtering through the trees, the kind of light that makes you conscious of time passing. Einstein is 71 years old. White hair, rumpled sweater, no socks. He never wears socks anymore, abandoned that years ago. He's staring at equations on the blackboard, equations he's been working on for 2 decades, unified field theory. The thing he believes will complete physics, will explain everything. Gravity, electromagnetism, all of it. One elegant set of equations. He believes this is the future. The younger physicists at the Institute don't. They're down the hall. In other offices, working on something else entirely. Quantum mechanics, the thing Einstein refuses to accept. The door is open. He can hear them sometimes, laughing, discussing, excited about their work, about probability, about uncertainty, about particles that exist in multiple states until observed. Einstein hates it, not because he doesn't understand it. He understands it perfectly. That's the problem. He thinks it's incomplete, thinks there must be something deeper. Hidden variables. Determinism beneath the randomness. He's been saying this for 25 years. God does not play dice with the universe. He said that in 1926. Still believes it in 1950. But the young physicists don't care what Einstein believes anymore. They've moved on. The Institute is quiet at this hour. Most people have left. A few lights remain on down the hall. The quantum mechanics group. Always working late, always collaborating, always building on each other's ideas. Einstein works alone. Always has. Even when he was young. Even when he was revolutionary. But back then, being alone meant independence, freedom, unburdened by institutional thinking. Now alone just means isolated. He stands, walks to the window, looks out at the woods, bare trees, November. The leaves fell weeks ago, everything brown and gray, winter approaching. He remembers when he was the young physicist, when he was the one challenging the old guard, when he published the theory of relativity and overturned centuries of Newtonian physics. That was 1905, 45 years ago. He was 26 then, working in a patent office in Bern. Unknown. Dismissed by the academic establishment. No university position, no laboratory, no colleagues, just him, a desk, and ideas that would change everything. Special relativity, the photoelectric effect, Brownian motion, mass energy equivalence, 4 papers, published in 1 year. Each one revolutionary. The physics community ignored him at first, then ridiculed him, then slowly, grudgingly, accepted he was right. By 1915, he'd published General Relativity, Curved Space-Time, Gravity as Geometry, the most elegant theory ever written. By 1919, observations during a solar eclipse confirmed his predictions. He became world-famous overnight, the young rebel who overthrew Newton. Now he's the academic establishment, and he's being dismissed by the next generation. The same way he dismissed the generation before him. Einstein sees the pattern, understands it intellectually, but can't accept it emotionally. Because this time he's certain he's right. Certain quantum mechanics is wrong, or at least incomplete. Certain there must be a deeper level of reality, one that's deterministic, knowable, classical. The evidence says otherwise. But Einstein doesn't trust the evidence. He trusts his intuition, his sense of how nature should work. That intuition served him perfectly for decades. Now, it's failing him. He turns from the window, looks at his desk, letters stacked up, most unanswered, invitations to conferences he won't attend, Requests for interviews he'll decline. Questions from students he doesn't have. He doesn't teach anymore. Hasn't for years. The younger physicists don't want to learn what he knows. They want to learn quantum mechanics. And for that, they go to others. Einstein's office has become a museum. A place people visit to see a living legend, not to learn, just to say they met him. He hates it, but doesn't know how to change it. Doesn't know how to become relevant again. Because becoming relevant means accepting quantum mechanics. And he can't do that. Won't do that. There's a knock at the door. Einstein turns, says, "Come in." A young physicist enters, mid-30s, sharp suit, confident. One of the quantum mechanics researchers. His name doesn't matter. Einstein barely remembers it. There are so many of them now. Young, brilliant, working on problems Einstein considers meaningless. The young physicist says, "Professor Einstein, we're having a seminar downstairs on the latest developments in quantum field theory. Would you like to join us?" The invitation is polite, but Einstein can hear the tone underneath. The tone that says, "You're welcome to observe what real physics looks like now." The tone that says, "We're doing this out of courtesy for what you used to be." Einstein says, "Thank you, no. I have work to do." He gestures at the blackboard, at his unified field equations. The young physicist nods, glances at the blackboard, at Einstein's work. Einstein sees the glance, sees the dismissal in it. The same dismissal he gave to classical physicists when he was young. The same certainty that the old generation just doesn't understand. Except this time, Einstein is the old generation. The young physicist says, "Of course." "Well, if you change your mind, we're starting in 10 minutes. He lingers for a moment, like he wants to say something else, then decides against it. Leaves. Einstein stands there, alone again. The hallway is empty, silent. He considers going down to the seminar, sitting in the back, listening to their presentations, their excitement, their certainty. He's been to a few, years ago, when he still thought he could convince them, show them the flaws in their thinking. It never worked. They'd listen politely, nod, thank him for his input, then continue exactly as before, because they have the experiments, the data, the predictions that match observations. Einstein has equations, beautiful equations, elegant equations, equations that don't predict anything new, don't explain anything quantum mechanics doesn't already explain better. He knows this. Deep down, in the part of himself he doesn't like to acknowledge, he knows his unified field theory is going nowhere, but he can't stop. He returns to the blackboard, picks up chalk, stares at his equations. They're beautiful, mathematically elegant, symmetrical in ways that feel right, feel true, but they don't work. Not in any practical sense, not in any testable sense. They're exercises in mathematical aesthetics, nothing more. He's known this for years, keeps trying anyway, keeps believing he's close. That one more insight, one more mathematical trick, one more brilliant leap, and it will all click into place. It never does. The chalk hovers over the board he's about to write. To try another approach. He lowers his hand. What's the point? He's tried every approach, every variation, every mathematical technique he knows. Nothing works. Nothing will ever work, because the problem isn't mathematical, it's conceptual. He's trying to unify gravity and electromagnetism using classical field theory, but the universe doesn't work that way. The universe is quantum, probabilistic, uncertain, and Einstein refuses to accept that. Downstairs, the seminar begins. Einstein can hear muffled voices through the floor. Someone speaking. Confident voice, clear articulation. Then questions. Discussion. Multiple voices overlapping. Excitement. Someone laughs. Others join in. Not mocking laughter, genuine amusement. The laughter of people who enjoy what they're doing, who enjoy working together. Einstein hasn't laughed like that in years, hasn't felt that kind of excitement in decades. Physics used to excite him, used to make him feel alive, connected to something larger than himself. Now it just makes him tired. He sets the chalk down, sits in his chair, the old wooden chair that creaks when he moves, looks at the blackboard, at 20 years of work, thousands of hours, countless equations, all leading nowhere. The voices continue below, animated discussion, questions, answers, debate, the sound of a community working together, building on each other's ideas, moving forward. Einstein listens. For a long time, just listens, then stops listening, returns his attention to the blackboard, to his isolation, to his irrelevance. He closes his eyes. The room fades. The voices below fade. He's back in Brussels. 1927. The Solvay Conference. He can see it clearly. The Grand Hotel, the ornate conference room. Chandeliers, dark wood paneling, rows of chairs filled with the greatest physicists in the world, all gathered to discuss the new quantum theory. Einstein was 48 then, still in his prime, still respected, still listened to, but already fighting a losing battle. The conference lasted a week, everyday presentations on quantum mechanics, on wave functions, on probability, on uncertainty. Every evening informal discussions, debates, arguments. Einstein participated fully, raised objections, proposed thought experiments designed to show quantum mechanics was wrong, incomplete, missing something fundamental. His colleague responded every time, patiently, carefully, dismantling each argument. Einstein would spend the night thinking, refining his objection, making it sharper, more precise. The next evening, he'd present the refined version. His colleague would listen, think, then explain why it still didn't work. By the end of the conference, the consensus was clear. Quantum mechanics was correct. Einstein was wrong. Not everyone agreed. A few older physicists sided with Einstein, but they were the minority. The old guard, the ones being left behind. The younger generation embraced quantum mechanics completely, enthusiastically. They saw it as liberation, freedom from classical constraints, a new way of understanding reality. Einstein saw it as surrender, giving up on the possibility of truly knowing the universe. He didn't accept the consensus then, doesn't accept it now. 23 years later. But the cost of not accepting it has been enormous. The physics community moved forward, built quantum electrodynamics, predicted the existence of new particles, explained atomic structure, chemical bonds, solid-state physics. Einstein stayed behind, still fighting battles from the 1920s, still insisting reality must be deterministic, must be knowable, must follow classical rules at some fundamental level, still believing that spooky action at a distance, quantum entanglement, must be wrong. Still believing particles must have definite positions and momenta even when not observed. Still believing the moon exists even when nobody's looking at it. The evidence says otherwise. Every experiment confirms quantum mechanics. Every prediction holds. The theory works better than any theory in the history of physics. But Einstein can't let go, can't accept that the universe operates on probability, on uncertainty, can't accept that particles don't have definite properties until measured, can't accept that observation creates reality instead of merely revealing it. It violates everything he believes about how nature should work. Should. That's the word that trapped him. Einstein built his entire career on questioning should, on challenging assumptions, on looking at what is instead of what ought to be. When everyone said time was absolute, he asked, should it be? When everyone said space was fixed, he asked, should it be? When everyone said nothing could exceed the speed of light, he built a theory around it. He looked at nature directly, without preconceptions, without assumptions about how it ought to behave. That made him revolutionary. But now he's the one clinging to should. The universe should be deterministic. Reality should be deterministic. Reality should be objective. Physics should be complete and knowable. Should. The younger physicists don't care about should. They care about what works, about what the experiments show, about what the mathematics predicts, and quantum mechanics works spectacularly. But Einstein can't accept it, because accepting it means abandoning his deepest belief, the belief that drove everything he accomplished, the belief that nature, at its core, is rational, knowable, governed by elegant, deterministic laws. Quantum mechanics says nature is fundamentally random, unknowable in principle, governed by probability. For Einstein, that's not physics. That's surrender. So he keeps fighting, even though the battle ended decades ago, even though he's fighting alone, even though nobody's listening anymore. Einstein opens his eyes. He's back in his office. The Solvay conference is history. Brussels is thousands of miles away. 1927 is 23 years past, but the argument hasn't changed. He looks at the blackboard again, at his unified field equations. 20 years of work, thousands of hours, countless attempts, no progress, no breakthrough, no validation. He knows this. Deep down, in the part of himself that's still honest, he knows he's wasting his time, knows the unified field theory he's pursuing is a dead end, knows quantum mechanics is here to stay. But he can't stop. Because stopping means admitting he was wrong, means admitting the universe doesn't work the way he needs it to, means accepting that his greatest insight, that nature follows elegant deterministic laws, was incomplete, was only true at certain scales. In certain conditions, means accepting that at the quantum level nature is strange, counterintuitive, probabilistic. He can't do it. His identity is built on being right about fundamental things, on seeing deeper than others, on understanding nature's true character. If he's wrong about this, what does that make him? Just another physicist. Just another smart person who figured some things out and got other things wrong. Not special, not unique, not the one who saw what others couldn't. Just human. Einstein picks up the eraser, holds it, stares at the blackboard. He could erase everything, start fresh. Admit defeat, move on. His hand moves toward the board, then stops. He can't do it. Can't erase 20 years of work. Can't admit it was all for nothing. He puts the eraser down, leaves the equations there. Tomorrow he'll try again. Start over. Use a different mathematical approach. A different physical interpretation. Same result. Always the same result. But he'll keep trying. Because that's all he has left. The work, the belief, the certainty that he's right and everyone else is wrong. Without that, what is he? The seminar downstairs ends. He hears footsteps in the hallway, multiple people, young voices, energized, talking rapidly, probability amplitudes, wave function collapse, renormalization, field operators, the language of quantum mechanics, the language Einstein refuses to speak. They walk past his door. Their voices fade as they move down the hall, heading to the common room to continue their discussion, to work out details, to collaborate. None of them look into his office. Don't need to. They already know what they'll find. An old man, working on an old problem, using old methods, refusing to accept the new reality. Einstein sits in the fading light. The sun setting behind the trees, shadows growing longer across the floor, surrounded by his failures. His beautiful, elegant, useless failures. Still believing he's right. Still alone. The room grows darker. He doesn't turn on the lamp, just sits in the gathering dusk. Outside, the woods darken. Day becomes night. The temperature drops. Winter approaching. Day becomes night. The temperature drops. Inside, Einstein sits, waiting for an insight that will never come, defending a vision of reality that no longer matters, working on a theory nobody wants, solving a problem nobody cares about. The blackboard stands behind him, covered in elegant equations. Symmetric, beautiful, mathematically sophisticated, all of them beautiful, none of them true, none of them useful, none of them relevant. He knows this, but can't admit it. Not to the young physicists, not to his colleagues, not to himself. So he sits in the dark, alone. And that's how he'll spend the next 5 years, until he dies. Still working on unified field theory, still rejecting quantum mechanics, still certain he's right, still completely alone. This is how irrelevance happens. Not with a dramatic fall, not with a public failure, not with some catastrophic mistake that destroys your reputation overnight. Just slowly, quietly, gradually. One refused invitation at a time, one dismissed theory at a time, one younger generation at a time, until you're still in the building, still have your office, still have your title, still have your reputation, but nobody's listening anymore. Nobody's learning from you. Nobody's building on your work. You become a symbol, a historical figure, someone people visit out of respect for what you did decades ago, not for what you're doing now. Einstein spent his final years this way, from 1950 until his death in 1955. 5 years of isolation, 5 years of irrelevance, working on unified field theory every day, filling notebooks with equations, trying approach after approach, never making progress, never accepting quantum mechanics, never acknowledging he might be wrong, writing letters to colleagues, explaining his position, defending his intuition. They'd write back politely, respectfully, but without engagement, without real interest, like writing to a beloved grandfather who still talks about the old days. You listen because you love them, not because they have anything new to say. Einstein knew this. On some level, he had to know. But he never changed course, never admitted defeat, never stopped working on his unified field theory. When he died in 1955, his desk was covered with papers. Equations for a unified field theory. Still unfinished, still not working. His obituaries praised his earlier work. The special relativity paper from 1905. The general relativity theory from 1915. The photoelectric effect. Mass energy equivalence. Revolutionary contributions. World-changing insights. They mentioned his later work briefly, politely. The unified field theory he spent decades pursuing, never completed, never successful, never relevant. The newspapers called him the greatest physicist of the century. They were right, but they were talking about the Einstein of 1905 to 1925, not the Einstein of 1930 to 1955. That Einstein was just a brilliant man who couldn't accept being wrong. Quantum mechanics, the thing he rejected, became the foundation of modern physics, led to transistors, lasers, computer chips, MRI machines, GPS satellites, led to our understanding of chemistry, material science, particle physics, led to technologies that changed the world. Einstein contributed nothing to any of it because he refused to accept the theory that made it all possible. The young physicists he dismissed won Nobel Prizes, built careers, trained the next generation, created the scientific framework we still use today. Einstein became a symbol, an icon, a face on t-shirts and posters, the wild-haired genius, the tongue-sticking-out photograph, the personification of intelligence. But in physics? In actual working physics, he became irrelevant decades before he died. His colleagues knew it. The young physicists knew it. Eventually, even the general public knew it. Einstein, the symbol, remained important. Einstein, the active physicist, became a footnote. That's what being right once costs. It makes being wrong later unbearable. It makes admitting error impossible. It makes changing your mind feel like betrayal. Einstein changed physics revolutionized our understanding of space, time, gravity, energy, then refused to let physics change him, refused to accept that the universe might work differently than he believed, refused to acknowledge that his intuition, which served him perfectly for decades, might have limits. The universe kept moving, kept revealing itself, kept operating a quantum rules. Einstein stood still, kept fighting, kept insisting reality must match his expectations. The universe didn't care what Einstein expected. It just kept being quantum, and that makes all the difference between revolution and irrelevance, between changing the world and being left behind by it, between dying as an active contributor and dying as a symbolic relic. Einstein did both. The tragedy is that he didn't have to. He could have accepted quantum mechanics, could have contributed to its development, could have remained relevant. His mathematical ability remained sharp. His physical intuition, even if flawed, was still remarkable. His reputation gave him access to the best minds in physics. He could have done important work in his final decades. Instead, he spent them alone, fighting a battle nobody else cared about, defending a position nobody else held. Still brilliant, still Einstein, but no longer relevant. That's the real lesson. Not that Einstein was wrong. Everyone is wrong sometimes, but that he couldn't accept being wrong, couldn't adapt, couldn't grow, couldn't adapt. And certainty, in the end, is what killed his relevance. Not quantum mechanics. Certainty.